Roll for Crit presents how to play Power Rangers, Heroes of the Grid in 5 minutes or less or more. Heroes of the Grid is the mighty morphin game of teamwork and collaboration between a gang of teenage friends with robots. Designed by Jonathan Ying and published by Renegade Game Studios. Your goal in Heroes of the Grid is to fight off waves of baddies, clear them out of the city, and ultimately defeat 2 monsters and 1 boss. Each player chooses which ranger they'd like to play as and receives the appropriate figure and deck of cards, plus 1 energy token and 2 action tokens. Players draw between 1 and 5 cards from their deck for their starting hands. At the start of each round, new enemies are spawned in the deployment phase. Draw 5 cards from the top of the enemy deck, 1 at a time. For each card, place that number and type of enemy in the location indicated on the back of the next card in the stack. If the next card shows a monster or boss symbol, draw it and add them to the board, even if you've already drawn 5 cards. If a location has enemies in it equal to its limit number, it receives a panic token. Monster and boss figures also add panic tokens automatically, regardless of the number of figures present. If a boss or monster would spawn in a location that is already panicked, they move to the next clockwise location and cause panic there instead. Panic tokens can be removed by clearing that area of enemies completely. If all 4 locations are panicked, you lose the game. After deployment, used cards are shuffled and added to the bottom of the enemy deck. Action tokens represent your available actions for the entire round. Each time you use an action, you flip one over. When both are flipped, you're out of actions. Generally speaking, there are no traditional turns in Heroes of the Grid. Players are free to discuss what they think needs to be done, who should do it, and in what order. Actions you can take include movement. Spend 1 action to move to any location on the game board. If a location has enemies in it, you can spend an action to battle them. This is important because it's how you win. When one player starts a battle in their location, they are the lead ranger, but any other players in the same location can participate. First, 2 energy tokens are added to the shared supply. Then players can draw from their decks up to their hand limit of 5. Next, enemy cards are revealed. Each enemy type has its own deck, and you'll flip over 1 card for each enemy in the location, up to a maximum of 4 foot soldiers, and place them in a straight line. Enemies with the keyword passive have an ability that takes effect as long as they're in play. If any enemies feature the keyword fast, they move to the front of the line when drawn, and the enemies get to take the first turn. Otherwise, rangers take the first turn. Here's how it works. Any ranger in the location can play 1 card from their hand if they pay the required energy cost in the top left corner. Players can spend their own personal energy tokens or energy from the common pool. They can also add their own energy to the common pool at any time. You can also add 2 energy from the supply by flipping over 1 unused action token. After paying the cost for a card, carry out its effects as printed. An attack will target an enemy card of your choice. Some enemies feature the keyword guard. Guards protect the enemy cards directly adjacent to them horizontally or vertically, so you'll have to take the guards out before you can attack their neighbors. Otherwise, anyone in the lineup is free game. Most attacks will instruct you to roll a number of dice. For each damage symbol you roll, place 1 damage marker on the enemy. A miss symbol does not add to your damage count. If an enemy has damage tokens on it equal to or greater than its total health, flip it over and remove that enemy's figure from the location, placing it on the experience track for later. That enemy will no longer activate or carry out any of its effects during this combat. Some attacks allow you to deal direct damage without rolling dice. There are also maneuver cards, which offer their own set of special abilities, and reaction cards, which can be played in response to something specific outside your own turn. Read your cards carefully to know when they should be played. Afterward, place them in your own personal discard pile. After 1 ranger has taken a turn, the next enemy in the card lineup gets to do the same. They will carry out some effect according to their card text, usually dealing damage to 1 or more rangers. Unless specified, players choose which ranger in the battle takes the damage. Ranger damage works differently from enemies, as rangers don't have a health level. Instead, your life is represented by your deck. Whenever a player is attacked, they reveal cards from the top of their deck, 1 at a time. In the bottom right corner of a card are a number of shield symbols. Each one of these shields blocks 1 point of damage. If a card has more shields than the amount of incoming damage, place it at the bottom of your deck and you're done. If the shields are equal to the damage number, then discard the card and you're done. If there are fewer shields than the total damage number on your card, then you'll need to flip another card and so on until you've drawn a total number of shield symbols equal to or greater than the amount of damage you're receiving. If at any point your deck runs out completely, your ranger is knocked out. When a ranger is knocked out, 1 of the 3 energy tokens at the command center is removed. That player reshuffles their deck and starts with a fresh hand of cards and a new energy token. If a player gets knocked out when there are no energy tokens left in the command center, it's game over. After the enemy card is activated, then another ranger takes a turn, and so on, back and forth down the lineup of cards until either all the enemies are defeated or you've simply run through the entire line, with rangers getting the final turn. Monsters and bosses work the same way as foot soldier enemies, but they always get 4 cards drawn from their deck. A monster requires you to take out 4 of its cards to beat it, while bosses require you to take out 6, meaning that they'll last for at least 2 battles. Finally, all cards get shuffled back into their respective decks, except for defeated monster and boss cards, which are kept separate to remind you how many of their cards you've defeated. Players can take leftover energy from the supply if they don't already have a token, and panic tokens are removed now if that location was cleared of enemies. The final action you can take on your turn is the recovery action. Take cards from your discard pile with a combined total of up to 6 shield symbols and shuffle them back into your deck. Recovering also gets you 1 energy token. If you move into the command center on the board, you get to recover by shuffling all your discard pile back into your deck for free. As for that experience track, if it's ever entirely filled with enemies, remove those figures, advance the power level track by 1, and flip the top card of the Zord deck. Assign that Zord card to whomever it belongs to. Once per round, that player can exhaust that card to use its special ability. This is in addition to each player's own special ability, which can be used during a battle they're involved in according to the card's instructions. Defeating a monster also allows you to draw a new Zord card immediately. If you manage to get to the bottom of the Zord deck, you can form the Mega Zord, which has its own special ability. Once all players have used their actions, the round ends. Spawn new enemies, flip action tokens, and unexhaust ability cards, then continue until the final boss emerges. Defeat them and survive the round, and you win! Let too many spaces get panicked or too many rangers get knocked out, and you lose. If you want to spice things up, you can also flip the locations to their other side at the start of the game for advanced options and abilities. In conclusion, move, fight, recover, and morph mightily. That's Power Rangers, Heroes of the Grid in a nutshell. Did you get all that?